Many of us grew up with one very popular cartoon family on our TVs, but how many of us were taking notes on how the characters touched on climate change? In today's episode, we're heading to Springfield to discuss The Simpsons through a climate lens. The Simpsons.
Okay, we can't do that. That is copyrighted. I don't think we really need to run through what The Simpsons is all about, as most of you will probably be very familiar with it. There are over 700 episodes of the show, and of course The Simpsons movie. Today we'll be discussing a little bit of both, but excuse us for not discussing over 30 years worth of a TV show in one podcast.
Fun fact, it is the longest running American sitcom.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of episodes.
They have a lot of accolades, yeah.
So, hot take?
Okay, my hot take is that The Simpsons was / maybe still is, we don't actually currently watch it, an incredibly smart show that does a great job of exploring social issues while still remaining very funny.
My hot take is that The Simpsons has quite possibly one of the best depictions of how our society deals with climate anxiety that I think I've ever seen. We'll get onto that episode in a bit, but I was quite taken aback. Didn't expect it to be such a good depiction.
The Simpsons movie was not how I remembered at all. Like, I used to watch The Simpsons a lot as a kid. Like, did you do that? Did you watch The Simpsons?
Yeah, I think my memory of The Simpsons was watching it. I think we always watched an episode before dinner, or maybe it was breakfast. I think if my siblings are listening, they can correct me. But I remember especially watching it with my dad, and I think he enjoyed it as well because it's very much one of those cartoons and shows which is both for kids and the parents. I think, you know, we look back now and there's probably jokes, of course, that we missed as a child but now can very much relate to and understand on a deeper level.
Yeah, I think this is one of the shows that kind of feels like a gateway show to adult entertainment because it's got, as you said, both jokes for kids and jokes for adults, and it's just it is a funny show. And I remember watching it as a kid on Sky 1 or Channel 4. Like, they used to play reruns of it. Yeah, it was definitely one of those shows that I actually sat down and watched.
Do you remember a specific episode? Do you have a favourite or just, the most memorable one that pops out to you?
Maybe not episode, but like I really do remember playing Simpsons Hit and Run as a kid, or like the Treehouse of Terror, a Game Boy Advance game. Like, those video games were really something that I look back on with joy, and I'm not a gamer, but I would love to play those games again.
For me, I very much remember the episode where Homer recognizes himself in Mr. Sparkle. I don't know why that episode is stuck in my brain. I think it's like a Japanese detergent box that he sees what looks to be Homer on. For whatever reason, that episode will forever be ingrained in my mind.
Yeah, there's a lot of memorable scenes and moments from The Simpsons. And I mean, the movie itself, although I said I don't remember the environmental messaging of it, like the dome and the spider pig and all those kind of funny jokes as a kid, they've stuck with me through, 20 years since this movie came out? 15 years?
Yeah. A spider pig, oh my gosh, that's definitely stuck with me. I think we all know the tune to Spider Pig.
It's just so memorable.
I think when we sat down to watch it again, I was really surprised that the whole movie is based around pollution. Like, I had no memory of that. Yeah, based around pollution and how dangerous it can be to have a government who is really careless and is not thinking properly about what decisions it's making. It blows my mind that so many people watched and enjoyed this movie, and it is such a big part of our childhood, and yet it really went there on the topic of pollution and governments not doing the right thing.
Yeah, I do wonder how successful it was at the time to kind of get people to think about the environmental messaging of the film, because it is kind of wild how in your face it is.
Yeah, the general idea is that Lisa is worried about the levels of pollution in Lake Springfield, but Homer is not listening. He's just being typical Homer, and he ends up dumping Spider Pig's waste into Lake Springfield.
This is after Lisa gives a massive speech in front of the whole town to say don't pollute the lake, basically. that is that breaking point, and the whole town seems to respond to that quite positively.
Yeah, they all spit out their water when they realise it's from the lake.
I think that is the speech that people think predicted Greta's speech in the UN.
Although I will say there are so many, like hundreds of thousands, like millions of young people who are shouting across the world. So to say that it's Lisa being Greta, I don't know, a little stretch to me, but maybe that's a hot to take. After Homer dumps the waste into Lake Springfield, Springfield is then put under a giant glass dome in order to kind of stop the spread of the pollution into the rest of the world. Obviously, Springfield then descends into chaos. The Simpsons family end up fleeing to Alaska to escape angry mobs which turn on Homer before they end up returning to Springfield, which is being threatened. It might be blown up, basically. It literally is all about pollution and trying to save the day.
It does feel like the dome idea would be something that Trump would do. Like, that seems like a Trump idea.
I mean, that whole bit where the head of EPA, the EPA, goes to the president and, like, gives him a handful of options but doesn't actually show what those options are, that kind of feels like what Trump's been doing with a lot of, like, executive orders and stuff.
Do you think that's a good solution?
No. That's pretty solid no, I think. We should not have an environmental solution that looks like cutting off communities from the rest of the world and just, like, putting you in a dome and being like, see you later, fight for yourself. Like, fight for your life.
But you can get out. Maggie got out.
I mean, yeah. What would you do in the dome?
I'd be like Mo. I think I'd be the king of the dome. Go mad after a while, but I would try and assert dominance.
Like you said, like, I would be Maggie and I would be straight out of there. For legal reasons, this is a joke. But where is the angry mobs going after the real polluters in the world? When are we showing up with torches? Like, there's so much energy in this movie from the whole of Springfield going after Homer dumping his pig crap in the lake. Not only, like, can we channel that energy in real life, but also makes you think, why are they not listening to Lisa and going after the people who originally caused the pollution in the lake? Obviously, Homer is part of the problem, but where did it begin? Where did it start?
Mr. Burns, eat the rich.
There we go. Go to Mr. Burns' house.
Go after Mr. Burns, they're supplying the jobs.
Oh, yeah. Takes us back to Don't Look Up. Are you for the jobs the dome would bring?
Legally, I would not join those angry mobs. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. In a fictional world, wink, wink, we would join the mobs. Wink, wink.
If we were part of The Simpsons, we would be there with our pitchforks.
In a cartoon world.
Pointed at Homer.
We're at the EPA guy because he's not great either. He's the one who put the dome on top of them all.
He's power hungry.
Exactly.
There's a windmill in that background. Oh, there's a solar panel on that hill. Oh, there's an iceberg melting slowly. Oh, it's a climate film.
There are so many memeable moments in this movie as well. For me, I find that really funny. The hottest day of your life so far meme of Homer and Bart comes from this movie, and I always enjoy finding the origins of memes, especially when they're used in the context of climate, because I obviously knew it was from The Simpsons, but totally forgot the context of it from this.
Yeah, there's funny little jokes scattered throughout, like when Milhouse gets taunted by Nelson to say, like, climate change isn't real, and then gets punched for being a sellout when he says it. Like, that feels quite a good take on the classic bully jokes that The Simpsons has quite a lot. Something I found quite entertaining was the fact that this may be the first climate rom-com film with the relationship between Lisa and Colin.
Here's another hot take for you that I think we are Lisa and Colin.
Is it because I'm ginger?
No, that's not the only reason. I feel like I very much relate to Lisa. I think she's vegetarian, but I'm vegan. I care about the environment. I feel like I was definitely the first one in my family to kind of, like, become awakened to the impacts of the climate crisis and very much relate to being like the annoying one who has to tell everyone about it. I also love the colour orange, and Lisa wears an orange dress. And then we have Colin, or should we say Jake, who plays the guitar very nicely, cares about the environment, and yeah, he's also ginger.
Oh yeah, speaking of the rom-com side, there's like the kind of anti-rom-com in this film, which is the breakup of Homer and Marge's marriage, which is actually really sad to watch. I didn't remember. So it kind of goes, as well as the environmental themes, it kind of goes into a deep dive into their relationship. And having had maybe 16 seasons of the show before this, where Homer, every episode constantly annoys Marge, it's kind of wild to see her temporarily leave in this movie. And it's quite sad.
You don't think about Marge and Homer ever breaking up?
She records over their wedding video. Like, she's done. After 16 years, that's something.
Was pollution and the risks of environmental disaster what pushed them to the brink?
Don't know, but as we will discuss later on, she also was annoyed at Homer in an episode when he became a mineral rights buyer for Mr. Burns when he was fracking Springfield. She disagreed with what he was doing.
Go off, Marge. She stands her ground when she cares about something. And in this case, the environment.
Homer is a bad dad, and throughout this film, he's bad overall. He's not the lovable doofus. He's an asshole.
An asshole who dumps his pig crap in the lake.
And abandons his family, and dares his son to skateboard naked. No wonder Marge left, although I feel like I would have left before the 16 years.
Oh my god, yeah. He literally abuses his son, like, every day.
That's another subplot of this film, is that Bart wants to...
Oh, yeah, Bart and Ned Flanders.
Yeah, Bart wants to be, I guess, adopted by Ned because he shows him true love.
Oh, the hot chocolate he pours and does it on the windowsill. That's actually adorable.
So this film has ups and downs, and then probably has completely forgot the next episode of the actual Simpsons because the house fell down at the end. And do they remember anything of the film? I don't know. Now, there was something that I assumed was a joke in this movie, which is when Homer and the family drive into Alaska, they get given $1,000 just for being there. They were like, thanks, we're drill here. Here's $1,000.
They basically say, we pay residents $1,000 to allow the oil companies to ravage our state's natural beauty. Very much felt like a joke to me as well. It's very much not a joke. We discovered that the $1,000 bit is based on the permanent fund dividend, which is set up in Alaska and is partly funded by oil and mining companies.
Yeah, so they pay Alaskan residents around about $1,000, and it was designed to be an investment where at least 25% of the oil money would be put back into the kind of the future generations for Alaska who would no longer have oil as a resource.
Oil companies will literally do anything but stop drilling oil. They will pay thousands, I would expect this is like millions, to get away with what they're doing. And yeah, it was just quite a surprise to not only see The Simpsons touch on that, but also realise that it's real and that is very much something that they do.
I would have asked you if you thought this was actually real. Like, I know we just said it is real, but to my mind, $1,000 seems quite low to have your natural landscapes destroyed, especially when it's a place like Alaska.
Yeah, but then at the end of the day, you think we let them ravage our natural beauty around the world for free as well. Apparently in 2023 on social media as well, in relation to the scene in Alaska, a lot of people were saying that it was foreshadowing or a bit of a Simpsons prediction for the Willow Project, which Biden ended up approving. The Willow Project is led by ConocoPhillips and is expected to generate more than 250 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. So yeah, that's just interesting when you think about what the Simpsons kind of writes in and then what ends up becoming reality.
The Simpsons is able to predict so much because they have such a large back catalogue of episodes that things are bound to happen. Like they're definitely going to get 1 in 50 predictions right. But unfortunately, the things they do get right seems to be somewhat negative things in this world. So Tolly, what has The Simpsons predicted?
It predicted Trump's presidency in an episode in 2000. It predicted apparently the invention of smartwatches, which you can use as mobile phones. It predicted the discovery of three-eyed fish near a nuclear plant. And it also depicts how the fossil fuel industry has tried to slow down progress of renewable energy. there is a great clip that I actually showed to Jake, and it kind of inspired us to talk more about The Simpsons on the podcast, which shows an episode in 1993 where they're at the National Energy Convention and a solar energy display is torn down by a fossil fuel rep. And it's just like, yeah, that sums it up, really. It makes sense because obviously we've known about the impacts of fossil fuels for decades, so it's no surprise that we knew about it back in the 90s. But again, it's just hats off to Simpsons for highlighting these issues for so long.
Yeah, I feel like it plays to the strength of, there's so many jokes in the background of The Simpsons that it's probably easier to sneak in these kind of little blink and miss moments that do speak on social issues.
Of course, so many of these moments are kind of quite fleeting, but they're impactful when you realise what scale they're on and how many millions of people are going to be watching it.
After watching the Simpsons movie, we kind of wanted to see if there were any more examples of the Simpsons taking on environmental issues. And there's quite a few, actually. They've actually won 9 environmental media awards for episodes that discuss environmental issues.
So one of the episodes that we watched was season 20, episode 17, The Good, the Sad, and the Drugly. This episode follows Lisa discovering what Springfield would look like in 50 years into the future, and all she finds is bad news and climate disasters. For example, she sees one prediction which says polar bear hangs himself in prison and world war over last drop of oil. And she sits there and goes, it just keeps getting worse and worse.
So I think in this episode, we both deeply relate to Lisa and what she's doing. The episode does an amazing job of depicting climate anxiety.
Or as the show calls it, environment-related despair. Lisa says, what's therapy going to do for me when the world is in ashes? And then she gets prescribed with a drug called Ignoritol, which turns her world into one of happy faces and toxic positivity. And I think the reason I relate to this is because we are in a world where, for the most part, most people are ignoring the climate crisis, or at least kind of forcing themselves into denial. Or, I don't know, I think a lot of people say now that there are not many climate deniers, but many climate delayers. And I think for folks who have not quite realised that taking action and becoming empowered citizens is possible, there's a lot of people who are forcing themselves into a sense of I've just got to look the other way because I need to get on with the rest of my life. And this is kind of what Lisa experiences, is seeing people experiencing poverty but through the lens of it's all happy smiley faces.
Yeah, when will Lisa get a win?
That's true. She deserves a win.
She seems like the person who cares the most, but doesn't ever...
Yeah, no one's ever really backing her up. You kind of see it with Marge, but it's not yeah, Lisa, I believe in you, and we should be doing better. At least not in these few examples that we've watched.
And now another episode we watched, which we'll just lightly touch on, which was season 26, episode 5, which is opposite of frack, is where Mr. Burns is fracking in Springfield and ropes in Homer to get the community support for it. But Marge is worried about the fact that water was literally on fire, so she stops it in its tracks. We learned about these kind of people in Landman, so that was the little connection to one of our earlier episodes. But again, it kind of, what Simpsons does well is it kind of presents all sides of the coin and kind of lays it out there about maybe a pro, maybe a con to fracking. But from what I could tell in this episode, there was only cons to fracking. And Mr. Burns just wants to make money off the people of Springfield.
And I also think laying it out in really simple terms is really effective. How Marge just continuously keeps saying our water was on fire. That is enough reason to not be pro-fracking.
But it's another case of, hey guys, we'll give you some money if you just sign your rights away. The Simpsons seems to understand that people are bored by money. When bad things are happening, give them a little hush money and they'll be fine. Now, Mr. Burns owns a nuclear factory. This was probably the first exposure to nuclear energy that I had.
Definitely.
But it paints it in quite a negative light. You see all the mutated animals and injuries.
Yeah, that is actually a really interesting point when you think about how influential it was in our childhood and how it is that's Homer's job as well. He works there.
Renewable King does feel like The Simpsons likes to play with the idea of millionaires who are bad. I'm sure there's going to be an Eat the Rich episode, because every episode, Mr. Burns is the villain.
Are we going to see the Simpsons episode where we start eating the rich, literally?
Maybe a Treehouse of Terror? There probably is one.
Once again, unfortunately, we can't delve into the entire catalogue of Simpsons. That'd be a whole full-time job trying to do that.
Is Springfield a dystopia or a utopia?
I struggled with this one because of the amount of stuff that goes down. Probably a dystopia. Like, if you look at the movie as well, I'll stick with dystopia.
Springfield paints itself as the ordinary American town. There was even a joke in the movie which suggests that Simpsons is next to Maine, next to Wyoming, next to like Delaware. Like it paints itself as a very typical American town, so it doesn't place itself anywhere. I think, it's definitely a dystopia for me. Too much goes on in that town. Too many bad things. I mean, if you got a fish with 3 eyes just casually swimming around.
Maybe because of the whole like predictions becoming reality thing, The Simpsons starts off as dystopia, but as time goes on, it's becoming reality. How scorching are we talking?
For nostalgic purposes, I will say 65 degrees. It's cool. I enjoyed it. Don't know if I need to rewatch it straight away, but the Simpsons TV shows, I think, are endlessly rewatchable. / I haven't watched 20 seasons worth of it or whatever. So I think I could definitely go back and dive into The Simpsons.
Yeah, I think based just on the couple of episodes we rewatched and watching the movie again, I'm going for like 67. Basically the same there. I enjoy The Simpsons. I think hats off for the fact that it does talk about a whole host of like environmental but also like social issues and does it in a funny, clever, accessible way. For that, maybe I'd increase my score, but I'm sticking with my guns. 67 degrees, please.
It'd be interesting to see, since I haven't seen any of the later seasons, if the Disney years are any less socially aware. There's a good joke in the movie itself. It's Bart pretending to be a mascot for an evil corporation, and clearly it's Mickey Mouse. But now they're owned by Mickey Mouse, so I wonder what Bart would feel about that.
We want to know what you think about that, and we also want to know what Simpsons prediction is the best one in your opinion. Is there one we didn't mention? You know, what has come true since the episode you watched aired? Let us know by dropping a comment or a reply on Instagram and Blue Sky. You can find our handles in the description.
Yeah, thank you for listening to Lights Climate Action, and please remember to rate, review, and subscribe.
Yes, it's very helpful in getting us to reach more people so that more people can listen to us in their headphones or on the way to work or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much for all the support.
Bye.
Bye.
Shh. Do 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 do.